Will proceed. May the first request be read into the record, which will be followed by initial comments by the Department of Planning and a brief slide presentation.
Thank you, Madam. Thank you, Madam Chair. BA 2-20 Fellowship of Wildwood 1770 Mueller Road, Wildwood, Missouri 63038, care of Russ Ewing, Executive Pastor. 1770 Mueller Road, Wildwood, Missouri 63038. Request an exception to the city sign regulations to allow for a freestanding monument sign upon the property located at 1770 Mueller Road at a size no greater than 78 square feet, which is larger than the allowable 50 square feet. And I'm having trouble reading through the... Let's see if I can find one here. Bear with me. You have the file for the original, Terry? Thank you. Madam Chair, I'm going to start over.
Okay.
BA 2-20 Fellowship of Wildwood, 17770 Mueller Road, Wildwood, Missouri, 63038, care of Russ Ewing, Executive Pastor, 1770 Mueller Road, Wildwood, Missouri, 63038. Request an exception to the city sign regulations to allow for a freestanding monument sign upon the property located at 17770 Mueller Road, St. Louis County locator number 23W 410031, part of Lot 1 of J.R. Fraser Estate circa 1974, at a size no greater than 78 square feet, which is larger in area than the allowable 50 square foot threshold, along the subject site State Route 100 frontage at its intersection with Mueller Road, while also having a height of 12.5 feet, thereby greater than the allowable 10-foot standard. This request is contrary to the requirements of Chapter 415090 NU Non-Urban District Regulations of the City of Wildwood Zoning Ordinance, Chapter 415-410 Sign Regulations for FP, NU, and all R districts of the City of Wildwood Zoning Ordinance, and Plan Residential Development Overlay District Ordinance number 522. This property is located in Ward 1. Madam Chair, the petitioner is requesting this particular item be withdrawn. The Department of Planning is respectfully requesting a motion and second on the withdrawal request with a voice vote.
Mr. Turner, how do you vote? Yes. Mr. Frank? Mr. Mangler?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Petition withdraw.
Thank you. Madam Chair, BA 3-20 is the next case. Fellowship of Wildwood, 1770 Mueller Road, Wildwood, Missouri, 63038, care of Russ Ewing, Executive Pastor, 1770 Mueller Road, Wildwood, Missouri, 63038. Requests an exception to the city sign regulations to allow for the allowable freestanding monument sign upon the property, which is located at 17770 Mueller Road, St. Louis County locator number 23W 410031, part of Lot 1 of J.R. Fraser Estate circa 1974, to be at a size no greater than 60 square feet in lieu of the allowable 50 square foot standard, while also having a height of 10.5 feet in lieu of the allowable 10-foot standard, along the subject site's State Route 100 frontage near its intersection with Mueller Road. This request is contrary to the requirements of Chapter 415.090 NU Non-Urban District Regulations of the City of Wildwood Zoning Ordinance, Chapter 415.410 Sign Regulations for FP, NU, and all R districts of the City of Wildwood Zoning Ordinance, and Plan Residential Development Overlay District Ordinance number 522. The property was granted a variance for the existing monument sign in June 2003 for its placement at a 0-foot front yard setback distance in lieu of a 50-foot standard, as well as for other signage, directional wall types, in October 2019. The Board of Adjustments action in October 2019 also included action relating to the 0-foot setback for the allowable freestanding monument sign located along the property's State Route 100 frontage. This particular site is located in Ward 1.
Before beginning the hearing on this case, the Department of Planning would like to offer into the record the following as exhibits: the city's charter and master plan, the municipal code of the City of Wildwood, specifically Chapter 400, Article 2, the Board of Adjustments Establishment Duties and Powers, Chapter 415, Zoning Regulations, the file prepared and maintained on this request, including the petitioner's application and related information, as well as the department's recommendation report, and any testimony, exhibits, or other information offered as part of tonight's hearing as evidence in this cause, and all of which may apply to the case before you this evening. The department has prepared a slide presentation by Director Vunich pertaining to this case, if the board would like it presented at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to interrupt again and see if we can get some volume on our microphone. Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair and members of the board, the site of this particular sign request is located at Route 100 and Mueller Road, the intersection of those two streets. The map that is being displayed for your purposes tonight indicates the proximity of Fellowship of Wildwood, the location of the sign request from Wildwood City Hall. As you can see, it's a short distance removed from City Hall and primarily gotten to from City Hall by Route 100. The next photograph is an aerial type that depicts the development of the large tract of land. As you can see, we're also having AV problems of late here in our city council chambers. The projector will start in a few seconds and then we'll get back to what we were doing. My apologies. So either it's Thursday, the 13th, or there's a full moon up, because obviously our projector doesn't want to follow the rules. Come right back on. Thank you. Again, my apologies, Madam Chair and members of the board and those in attendance. Obviously, when technology works, it's great. When it doesn't, it certainly causes some delays. This image, again, is of the subject site. The property is used for a place of worship, along with a school and other facilities. And as you can see, it's substantially large in size. This particular image reflects the topography of the area and the subject site. I do want to draw a note to the lower left-hand corner, the intersection of Route 100 and Mueller Road. There are a number of topographic lines associated with the boundary between the site and the right-of-way. Those are reflective of a tall berm that was required by the City of Wildwood to screen the parking area in closest proximity to the arterial roadway. The next photographs are a series that indicates the sign location relative to Route 100 and the berm, and then there is a sequence of one further away, then one closer, and then one almost at the intersection itself. This is looking west on the shoulder of State Route 100. The site is to the right-hand side of the photograph. Again, kind of walking toward the west and the sign itself. And as you can see, visibility in some regards is limited given the current size. The final in this sequence is a series from the opposite direction. We're now looking east on State Route 100. Mueller Road is the area right there. And as you can see, the sign is up on the berm, and again, visibility is limited. This is walking closer to Mueller Road along Route 100, and again, the sign is visible at this location. Crossing the Route 100, this is looking from the eastbound lanes, walking east. So again, some of the members of the congregation may come in this direction as well. And then again, just walking closer to the intersection and the sign itself. The image that is on your monitors now and being displayed behind the dais is the location of the sign. And as you can see, it is at the 0-foot setback requested and granted by the Board of Adjustment in previous hearings, and in close proximity to the intersection. And an aerial photograph with that same information depicted for a better representation of the improvements, the roadways, and the sign. The petitioner has provided renderings of the sign. The new sign, as proposed from the previous two presented to the Board of Adjustment, is significantly smaller in size, 60 square feet versus 78 square feet, and the height has been reduced to 10.5 feet versus 12.5 feet. The important image here too as well is the existing sign, and as you can see, it was constructed shortly after the church opened, place of worship, and is somewhat dated in its appearance compared to most signs we see today. Madam Chair, the department has completed its slide presentation. If there are any questions, I'd be glad to try to answer them at this time. Thank you. If anything else can go wrong, let's get it out of the way right now.
Please state your name, address, and relation to the property.
Yes, good evening. My name's Jeff Kruger with Kruger Consulting and Engineering, and business address is in New Haven, Missouri. I'm pleased to represent Fellowship of Wildwood, which is 17770 Mueller Road. And Joe's presentation actually covered probably 60% of what I would like to go back through if it's okay. So I just wanted to... Mr. Kruger? Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Are you in?
Oh, I'm sorry.
I need to swear you in.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Madam Chair and board members, for allowing us to once again propose our request, and also to consider, and I'm thankful for this, the department's review and I guess approval, at least from the standpoint of being reasonable and appropriate, our request being reasonable and appropriate. We do feel the same way, and while we are interested in representing in making the church more well-known and presentable, we also want to and feel that the proposed sign and the changes will actually facilitate a safer passageway to and from Mueller Road and access to the property from Highway 100. With that being said, I'd like to start out with the first slide. Joe had already covered this, but I want to make sure everybody understands that the little red arrow that you see where it terminates is the approximate sign location. There is a red letter A there. That is the sign location. Now, if you notice at the bottom there, I denoted two locations, 250 feet and 600 foot. Now, those are distances relative to the center line of Mueller Road. 600 foot was somewhat arbitrary, but that is the Missouri Department of Transportation's line of sight requirement. So if you were to come in, as I understand, with working with them in the past, that you would have, for this exact arrangement, you would have to have at least 600 foot line of sight before they would ever grant approval for an intersection of this nature onto their state highway. So they feel that that's necessary distance. So I grabbed that as our starting point, and don't change it yet, Terry, but all the images that you'll see subsequent to this are based upon that point to the point that I labeled 250 foot, which is the Department of Revenue's minimum stopping, safe, reacting, braking distance required to make a turn of this nature from a 55 mile per hour speed zone. So I felt like those were two good points in space to work from. Starting point at 600 foot, ending point at 200 foot and 50 foot, because that's the point in time where a person has to already have read a sign, understood what it means, make a decision to stop. At that point, you need 250 feet to make that safe turn into Mueller Road. So that's why I chose those and why I wanted to make sure that you understood what they represent. Joe's already pretty well communicated the fact that our sign is up elevated on a berm, and because of the state highway right-of-way, it's pretty excessive. The sign is fairly far off the road. It's about 91 feet from the center line of the northern lane. And by the way, my perspective is all from westbound traffic. Okay. Terry, we're ready. You may recall from last time that I was requesting for, I guess, clarification. This particular excerpt from the Chapter 14 zoning regulations, and that is in the definition of the elevation of the monument itself. And we know it to be a maximum of 10 foot. That's as high as we can build. But how do you measure that 10 foot? And this is the definition of how you're supposed to determine grade or ground elevation in order to come up with the elevation of your sign, or the height of your sign. And so, as you can see from the excerpt, that the ground elevation of the monument sign shall be measured based on one of two different criteria, either the elevation of the adjacent street or the elevation of the average finished grade along the side of the building. Well, in our case, neither are applicable because of the berm. It's 14 foot higher than the average elevation along the side of the building, and it's almost equally the same down to Highway 100. So if you carry that out to its logical conclusion, a 10-foot high sign would be 4 foot, the top of that sign would be 4 foot below grade. So we don't really have a clear definition from the ordinance on how to actually measure the height of the sign. Okay, Terry, I'm good for the next one. This was actually a video, and I don't think it plays, as I recall from last time now. But this is that 600-foot point. This is the point where the line of sight begins from a Missouri Department of Transportation standpoint as being a safe distance for an operator of a vehicle to be able to visually see the intersection coming up and make safe travel through or to turn. You can see the sign up on the right-hand side there on the berm. One thing I want to make mention of, in addition to what Joe has already covered, is notice the sign currently is an ellipse or an oval in shape. If you notice the distance from the bottom of the ellipse to what we're going to call visual line of sight, or what I'd like to call ground level or grade in our case, just take mental note of that. It's a little bit, the resolution's not real great because, again, that's a video clip, but I don't think it plays, right, Terry? Okay. Go ahead and jump to the next slide. If we were to be able to get the video to play, it would end at this next slide, and that's the 250-foot point. And that is the point, again, where the Department of Revenue says, hey, you need this much distance from an intersection to react, to brake, and bring your vehicle to a safe enough speed to make a 90-degree turn. And so it's at this point that a motorist would have already needed to perceive the sign, legibly be able to understand what it's communicating, make a decision to stop, and look forward, and then initiate that 250-foot braking, reacting, turning distance. So before we leave this slide, again, take a notice of the bottom of the ellipse and the distance from what I'll call ground level or grade. And notice that's what's visible. I did the best I could at the 600-foot point and at various points along that 350-foot travel distance to the point 250 foot from Mueller Road to measure how much of the actual sign you could see at any point in time. Now, I was in a mid-size SUV, so it's going to vary. I was in the northbound lane. As grass grows taller, vehicle gets taller, it varies a little bit. But the best I could approximate was somewhere between 2 foot 8 inches and 3 foot of the bottom of that physical monument is not visible from any point along that path of travel. And so that image on the right hand side there, that is what that is depicting. If you were to measure down to what we'll call ground level or grade, going back to the ordinance definition of how you measure this height of a sign, there's 3 foot of it that's not visible from any point along that path of travel. Okay, Terry, you can go ahead. I took the same slide, moved it over to the left, and I scaled in the new sign that we're proposing. And at this point, if you were to use that logic, meaning the line of sight is going to become our measuring point of what we call ground or grade, then technically the sign that we're proposing is only 7.5 foot high because, again, from the ordinance, you can't define how to measure the height of the sign. It's not really applicable in our case. So you could measure it from the ground level, as you see on the right, which you can't see along the path of travel, and we have a 10.5 foot tall sign, which we would need a variance. If you were to accept the line of sight logic as our means by which to base the height of the sign, we wouldn't need to be granted a variance. We would just need to request that you consider the height of our sign to be 7.5 foot tall. Either way, we'd like to ask the board to consider the height of our sign as being sufficient and adequate for approval in one way or another, either as a variance or just accept that we'll call it a 7.5 foot tall sign. We do not plan to backfill it any more than what you see on the right. We do plan to put the greenery around there to hide the split face block. And that's a good scaling factor, by the way, because that block is 8-inch CMU, so it's 16 inches plus 3 mortar joints. So you're at 17.5 inches right there. And that's partly how I established the visible line of sight. We've lost 3 foot of our sign elevation. So that's basically our first request, is for you to consider the sign height at 7.5 foot or grant the church a variance of 6 inches. Next, our request is to consider the square footage, and this would be in the form of a variance. We're requesting you to consider a variance for the church. As you may recall, last time I used the same concept. I did a reversal of it this time around to make a point. I guess, Terry, go ahead and go back to slide right there. I don't know if you can see the dimensions, but basically what this is demonstrating is a very basic concept, and that is the apparent size of an object doesn't depend on its actual size, but it depends on visual angle. Basically, that's why things look smaller the further away they get from you. If you were to do the math and you took our proposed 10.5 foot sign and you put it at 50 foot from an observer, which by ordinance you would be allowed to go as close as 50 foot if the right of way and everything else would allow it. In our case, it doesn't. We're at 91 feet. But you could put a sign at 50 foot away, still meet the ordinance as far as the distance goes. If we were granted a variance in the height, you'd have a 10'6" sign. If you were to calculate the visual angle, extrapolate that up to our sign location, it gives the apparent sign a height of 5'6" 3/8 inches. Because the object is further away, obviously it looks smaller. So that is the logic that I would like to use and to demonstrate that while the sign is exceeding the 50 square foot maximum, the actual, I guess, I don't know what it's called, the informational portion of the monument is we're only allowed up to 50 square feet. We're proposing 60 square foot. If you were to use the ratios that I'm suggesting up here, you would find that the apparent area is actually 35 square foot for a 60 square foot monument. And again, it has to do with the distance. So if you take the vertical and the horizontal scale factor, because it's further away than the 50 foot, you actually calculate out that the apparent or perceived size of that informational area is actually, in fact, 35 square foot. If you were to move it further away, it would look smaller. Do you have any questions about that concept? I would be glad to share with you the progression of mathematical calculations that it took to get to that point, but it's pretty basic in concept because things do look smaller as they get further away. So at this point, then, we are requesting that you would consider a variance in 10 square feet in the informational portion of our monument sign be granted. That is to scale, the best that I can do on Photoshop, the proposed sign with 60 square foot, 10.5 foot above the footings, 7.5 foot above the line of sight grade or ground level at 250 feet away from Mueller Road, which again, that's the point where you should be looking away from the sign and making a decision. You have already made a decision to stop or not. That is all. Thank you for, once again.
Do any board members have any questions?
Quick question.
Yes.
I was here when you had your original variance request, and it looks like you have kind of re-engineered it, scaled it to maybe more appropriately. What, and I presume you worked with the department on doing that. So
We did. We worked quite a bit with the department, and we took in consideration pretty much what they were proposing. And in fact, I feel like the end result, and I think I can speak on behalf of the church, it's actually better than what we had originally proposed. So the department's requirements, I guess, in order to make an approval, we followed them, and we actually, in the end result, we like better. And so we feel like we're confident that this satisfies everybody's intent, and I believe that the sign's large enough. We did hold to the tri-state sign folks and their ability to, from a professional standpoint, to come up with the correct font size based on the distance. So we didn't get involved in saying, hey, we're going to control the font size and whatnot. They're the experts. Let them tell us what they think is best. So fortunately, once we scaled the overall informational portion down based on our collaboration with the department, it all fit. And we actually like the look of it better. So it works out well for us. I'm hoping that you would consider that in a positive way for us. I really think it'll help facilitate a safe passage. I mean, I know the church really wants to advertise who they are, especially the school, because that's currently not really being advertised. But I do believe that it's much more legible, and as you drive, certainly westbound, which again, that's my perspective, the biggest audience I believe comes from that area. I think you're going to see it sooner, and you're going to be able to understand and read it much sooner, and hopefully in time that you hit that 250-foot point and you can safely make a stop.
thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any speakers in the audience who want to speak in favor of or opposition to the request? Is there anybody who wants to hear an oral presentation of the department's report? Seeing none, this time I'd like to offer the Department of Planning the opportunity to make a
The department would like to thank the petitioners for meeting with the city staff twice since the January posting of this. With the revisions that they have made to the sign, that being a height of 10.5 feet in lieu of the former request of 12.5, and a size of 60 square feet in lieu of the 78 originally proposed. The department is supporting it, and if you have any further questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions from Ms. Gaston? Thank you.
Thank you.
Does anybody on the board have any final comments before before we close the proceedings for a vote? At this time, I'd like to close the proceeding for a vote, and can I call for a motion to approve, deny, or approve with conditions?
I'd like to motion to approve the variance.
Got a motion to approve, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Springer. Mr. Springer, how do you vote?
Approve?
Mr. Frank?
Approve.
Mr. Nandor?
Approve.
And I also approve. Congratulations, your variance is approved. Granted. Mr. Greenwich, could you read the next petition into the record?
We'll certainly give it a try, ma'am.
Good luck.
Board of Adjustment 4-20, Gasell Kuhn, 432 Highway 109, Wildwood, Missouri, 63005, care of Kathy Shaw Conley, Tom Shaw Real Estate, 17736 Edison Avenue, Chesterfield, Missouri, 63005. Request an exception to the minimum yard requirements general for the purpose of installing a new septic system and associated drain field upon a property located at 432 Highway 109, St. Louis County, locator number 19W120012, a parcel of ground created prior to 1965, which would thereby authorize a side and rear yard setback distances of 10 feet in lieu of 30 feet from the north and east boundary lines to the drain field, and a well to drain field distance of 55 feet in lieu of the required 100-foot separation distance per International Plumbing Code, IPC, upon a legally non-conforming lot. That is 1.6 acres in size in lieu of 3 acres. These requests are contrary to the requirements of Chapter 415-090 NU Non-Urban District Regulations of the City of Wildwood's zoning ordinance. This particular property is located in Ward 1.
Before beginning the hearing on this case, the Department of Planning would like to offer into the record the following as exhibits: the city's charter and master plan, the municipal code of the City of Wildwood, specifically Chapter 400, Article 2, the Board of Adjustments, Establishment, Duties, and Powers, Chapter 415, Zoning Regulations, the file prepared and maintained on this request, including the petitioner's application and related information, as well as the department's recommendation report, and any testimony, exhibits, or other information offered as part of tonight's hearing as evidence in this cause, and all of which may apply to the case before you this evening. The department has prepared a slide presentation by Director Vunich pertaining to this case, if the board would like it presented at this time. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, ma'am. Madam Chair and members of the board, the first slide is an aerial photograph of the subject site and the surrounding property lines and Highway 109. As the department typically does, the driving distance relative to the subject site to City Hall or City Hall to the subject site is shown. And as you can see, it is Route 100 to Route 109. Again, an aerial photograph of the site. This in this case at a little closer scale or smaller scale to bring out more detail. The site again has frontage on Route 109. There is a single dwelling located upon it and an outbuilding. The next aerial photograph includes the topography associated with the subject site. And I think it's important to note that there is a drainage feature that is located between State Route 109 and the dwelling, and that causes some significant topographic relief in association with the property. The next are photographs that were taken by the Department of Planning. This is standing at the driveway of the subject site looking what I describe as west on State Route 109. Again, at the driveway entrance to the subject property looking east on State Route 109. And the next few slides are a series of images reflecting the access into the site. Here, a gravel driveway, And as you can see, the gravel driveway avoids the drainage area, parallels it before crossing it in the westernmost portion of the property. Again, just a closer image of the driveway, the drainage area, and the dwelling itself. And then finally, some different perspectives in regards to the site. This is looking to the north. The dwelling is on the right-hand side of the photograph. And as you can see, there is a level area of what leveled area there is on the site behind the dwelling where the car is parked. This is the outbuilding, and this is also an area that is intended to be used for the well if the variance is not granted. The well would be upslope from the outbuilding. This is looking north again, but on the east side of the existing dwelling. You can see the level area more clearly here behind the dwelling itself. But again, the image shows the wooded nature of the lot and the slope or grade associated with it. This particular image is to indicate nearby neighbors. In the background there, up in the middle of the slide, you can see the nearest home. Its shape is right there. And then the next slide reflects the home that is to the east, and it is white in color and a little easier to discern through the trees and the other vegetation. The next slide is the engineered drawing provided by the petitioner. So again, State Route 109 is at the bottom of the engineered drawing. In yellow is the driveway area to the dwelling, and then to behind it where that white vehicle was parked. The new drain field is reflected in the green color, along with the septic system itself. The existing well is in red, and the new well, if the variance isn't granted for the existing well, is in blue. One of the areas that isn't necessarily called out is the little woodshed there. And again, referencing back to the photograph, the department noted that the proposed well location is somewhat upslope from that general area. Madam Chair, if there are any questions regarding the slide presentation, the department be glad to try to answer them at this time. Thank you.
Petitioner, please come forward. Can you please say your name, address, and relation to the property?
Catherine Shaw Conley. My home address is 287 Larimore Valley Drive, Wildwood, Missouri, and I actually have the buyer for the property. Yeah. Yeah.
Can you please explain the nature of your request and the hardship or practical difficulty necessitating this variance?
Okay, the seller is asking for the request to have the well, get a variance for the well because of the topography of the land. And I'm sorry, I wasn't really expecting to come up and talk. So so she's just asking for a request for a variance for the well because they had to put a new septic in because that failed.
So I'm not sure if this is for you or for Joe, but the relationship to the existing well to the failed septic field, there's a lot of lines on here. I'm not sure if I'm following it, but is it currently about 100 feet away from the existing septic system?
If Miss Gaston knows the answer, I'm going to defer to her.
Thank you, guys.
The existing septic field is actually to the right of the dwelling, situated where the basically below where the green area is shown. The the replacement system is shown in green. So the existing drain field failed, which is why they need to put in a new system. So the variance request as posted is for a 10-foot side and rear yard setback for the proposed replacement drain field, which is shown in green. Okay, 10 feet from the north line and 10 feet from the east line. The second part of the variance request is that the petitioner wishes to retain the existing well. However, its distance is only 55 feet from where the new drain field will be. The department is not in support of that, and the new well shown in blue is 105 feet, which meets the minimum 100-foot requirement from wastewater. I hope that clarifies the...
Yeah, I was just trying to get a sense of because I think the 100-foot distance between the well and the leach field, is that a state thing? Is that a city thing?
This international building code, plumbing code. So
in the beginning, I was just looking at the diagram. It looks like it probably was 100 feet away. And the wellhead is also above grade-wise, I think, where the existing leach field is. So the new leach field is actually going to be above it now, right? It's going to be higher up.
Correct.
Yeah. And so is the concern that because of what a leach field is, that it could work its way down to the wellhead? Is that what we're concerned about?
With the location of the existing well being utilized.
Right. Okay.
That is correct.
All right.
And Mr. Sprunger, just to kind of close the loop on that particular question, the department understands the difficult terrain that is associated with the new well location. But if the department's going to err, and it errs often, but if it's ever going to err, it's going to err on the side of caution with a potable drinking water supply.
Sure.
If you can't have clean potable water, you can't occupy, and it's a public health hazard. The department fully endorses the new drain field and the encroachment into the side and rear yard setback areas. It just can't find any comfort level with that proximity of the new drain field to the existing well.
And there's no way, it's a little hard to tell, without, I guess, mapping it out, but there's no way to change the dimensions of the leach field or anything like that so that you can get that 100 feet, or is it just doesn't quite fit in that space? Is that the problem?
My impression from reading the information provided by the petitioner is that soils aren't great in the area. The home, I believe, has 4 bedrooms, which dictates the size of the septic system and the drain field. And therefore, it is a large drain field, but there's a combination of factors that are leading to that size. And again, maybe the new well doesn't need to be at 105 feet, but 55 feet just creates a concern for the department. And the material provided by the petitioner references accessibility and cost. Certainly of those two rationales, cost is not one the Board of Adjustment should ever consider.
Mr. Vunich, it looks like the variance points on the field are just in the 2 corners. Is that correct?
Yes, the drain field is not entirely contained within the setback. It's just certain portions of the 2 corners, and the encroachment is minimal. And from the photographs that were provided, you could see that the neighbors are some distance removed. And to the benefit of this design, the drain field is as far away as possible from the drainage area in association with the site, which is very positive.
Right, yeah, okay.
Again, the department would like to state that it is. Oh, pardon.
Are there any speakers in the audience who may want to speak in favor of or opposition to the request? Seeing none, at this time I'd like to offer the opportunity to hear an oral presentation of the department's report. No request for that, so Ms. Gaston, do you have any final comments?
Again, the department would like to state that it is in support of the setback to the drain field at a distance of 10 feet in lieu of 30 for side and rear yard setback. However, the new well would be required at a minimum of 100 foot setback from the new proposed drain field per rationale stated in the department's report. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gaston. Do any board members have any final comments? At this time, I'd like to call for a vote. We have a motion to approve both variance requests, deny or approve the submission.
Well, I'll make a motion to approve the leach field, that variant, and I guess deny the variance for the existing well.
We have a motion to approve the variance request as it relates to the rear side yard setback and deny the current placement of the well. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second. Mr. Springer, how do you vote?
Yes.
Yes on the first and no on
Yes. All right.
Mr. Frank? Mr. Nandor?
Same, yes on the first, no on the second.
And I also vote yes for the first variance request and no on the second. Part of your variance. Thank you. Director, would you like to read the next one before we see the record?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Board of Adjustment Case 5-20, Pierre Zada, 4028 Princeton Ridge Drive, Wildwood, Missouri, 63038, care of Drew Bradshaw, the pool specialist, 11766 Missouri Bottom Road, Hazelwood, Missouri, 63042. Request an exception to the natural resource protection standards for the purpose of maintaining existing retaining walls, a two-tiered structure and a seat wall circa 2006 and constructed under previous ownership in conjunction with a planned in-ground swimming pool upon the property located at 4028 Princeton Ridge Drive, St. Louis County, locator number 26V240250. Lot 4 of Radcliffe Bluffs subdivision, established 2002, plat book 350, page 109, which would thereby authorize these structures to remain as is, although encroaching beyond the natural resource protection line, thus preventing any further disturbance to the protected area of the property. This request is contrary to the requirements of Chapter 420.200 Natural Resource Protection Standards and Procedures of the City of Wildwood Subdivision and Development Regulations and Chapter 415.090 NU Non-Urban District Regulations of the City of Wildwood Zoning Ordinance. This particular site is located in Ward 6.
Before beginning the hearing on this case, the Department of Planning would like to offer into the record the following as exhibits: the city's charter and master plan, the municipal code of the City of Wildwood, specifically Chapter 400, Article 2, the Board of Adjustments Establishment, Duties and Powers, Chapter 415, Zoning Regulations, the file prepared and maintained on this request, including the petitioner's application and related information, as well as the department's recommendation report, and any testimony, exhibits, or other information offered as part of tonight's hearing as evidence in this cause, and all of which may apply to the case before you this evening. Again, the department has prepared a slide presentation by Director Vunich pertaining to this case, if the board would like it presented at this time.
Yes.
Thank you again, Madam Chair. Madam Chair and members of the board, the department has prepared a brief slide presentation for your consideration. The first slide is the aerial photograph of the subject property and the surrounding area. As you can see, this particular subdivision was an extension of lots from a terminus of the original Radcliffe Place subdivision. The lots are long and narrow. As typical, the Department of Planning has provided a road map indicating the route from City Hall to the subject site, principally from City Hall to Manchester Road to State Route 109 and into the Radcliffe Place subdivision. Again, an aerial photograph of the subject site. You can see that it is located here in more of a east to west direction, north being where the arrow is that Ms. Gaston was pointing, south being on the opposite, and east and west on either side. The property is heavily wooded as represented on the aerial photograph, and the small area has been disturbed for the purposes of the single-family dwelling and certain accessory uses. Topography is added to this particular aerial photograph, and as you can see, there is a variability in topography, and the photographs that will be provided shortly will indicate such. This is a view of the street looking toward the east. The subject property is located on the right-hand side of the photograph. This is a view of the dwelling that is in place on the property. This is looking to the south. This is looking again to the south, and this is on the eastern side of the dwelling and the lot itself. As you can see, there is lawn area in association with the dwelling, but immediately that lawn area drops into an area that is inclusive of a drainage feature, then rises up the hillside. That area is heavily wooded. This is the opposite side of the lot. This is now on the west side of the dwelling, looking toward what I would describe the southeast. As you can see, there is a small garden area, playground equipment, a clubhouse, and the subject retaining walls. This is looking now more toward the northeast from the back of the lot, well, a portion of the back of the lot, as it is long and narrow. And you can see the retaining walls on this west end of the structure. Different view of the tiered retaining walls. Again, two walls or a set of walls. And this is looking more toward the northwest from the back of the lot or the back of the dwelling. And a more comprehensive view of the dwelling, the two tiered retaining walls, and the lot itself. This particular photograph is to represent the nearest neighbor to the east and another retaining wall. And then this is taken from the edge of the two-tiered retaining wall looking toward the east. The other was from the west. And again, the nearest neighbor in that direction. The plot plan showing the existing improvements. The proposed in-ground swimming pool is not in need of a variance, and what is in need of a variance are the existing retaining walls that form the two-tiered structure. Madam Chair, members of the board, if there are any questions of the department relative to its slide presentation, we'd be glad to try and answer them at this time.
We usually consider a trade-off. Is there an acceptable trade-off in that space?
In the department's report that's been prepared by Ms. Gaston and myself, we actually did consider the swap, as we call it sometimes. But in this case, this owner purchased the lot with the two-tiered retaining wall system in place. And the depiction on the plot plan doesn't truly represent the extent of the lot that is protected by the natural resource protection standards. It is a very deep lot, and I think Terry will show that image. So as you can see, I would estimate that almost 90 to 95% of the lot is encumbered by resource protection area, and the extent of encroachment in this instance didn't justify what the department believed to be a needed swap.
Gotcha. Yeah, perfect.
And for the record, I would like to thank the property owner. The gentleman was there when I visited the site to take the photographs, and he was very hospitable, and we do appreciate that.
Thank you, Director. Can the petitioner please come forward? Can you please state your name, address, in relation to the property, and then be sworn in by the court reporter?
Yes, my name is Drew Bradshaw. I'm with contractor, the pool specialist. Our address is 11766 Missouri Bottom Road, Hazelwood, Missouri. I am contracted by the homeowner to build the swimming pool.
Sworn in by the court reporter?
I do.
Can you please explain the nature of the request, the hardship, or practical difficulty in the variance?
Yes, the homeowner bought the property with the walls as is. When we visited the home to inquire about building a new swimming pool per the homeowner, we went out, we measured everything, we requested a site plan from the homeowner, which he provided. It showed the encroachments of the existing retaining walls. The homeowner was under the impression everything was done up and up, and any variances, if required, were taken care of. Upon our submission to the city, we found out that was not the case. In conversations with the director, Terry, as well as Steve, we came up with a plan, which we've brought forward today, essentially showing the encroachment of the existing walls. The swimming pool, which is currently held up by the zoning of the existing retaining walls, is also dependent upon the walls in place. If the walls were to be removed, there'd be substantial changes in the backyard just to get everything back up to grade. It would also greatly reduce any future potential plans for accessory uses inside the natural resource protection lines. Not to say that's an argument for the hardship of the pool, which it's not, but just as we weren't really sure what to do as far as with the county as well. The retaining walls that are in place essentially haven't been inspected. So as we excavate for the swimming pool, we'll be taking photographs with a structural engineer on retainer for the site. So just want to kind of try to make sure we do everything up and up for the pool, but dealing with the issue of the walls is why we're here today.
Do any board members have any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any speakers in the audience who want to speak in favor of or opposition to the request? Seeing none, is there any request to hear an oral presentation of the department's report? Seeing none, Ms. Gaskin, do you have any final comments?
The department would like to state it is in support of the request. As the petitioner noted, they had considered a swap. However, that would have basically created a nonconformity to the house, that being that the newly preserved area would put the home too close to it, basically under the 25-foot natural resource setback requirement. So again, as petitioner noted, he talked with the director, myself, and Steve Vogel, and it was decided it was just best to ask to retain the walls as is. To remove the walls, if the variance is not granted, would actually create more disturbance upon the property. So the department is in support of this, and if you have any further questions for us, we'd be happy to answer those. Thank you.
Do any board members have any final comments? At this time, I'm going to close the proceedings for a vote and call for a vote. Do we have a motion to approve, deny, or approve the condition?
I motion to approve the variance as requested.
We have a motion to approve the variance as requested. Do we have a second?
Second?
Thank you. We have a second. Mr. Springer, how do you vote?
Approve.
Mr. Frank?
Approve.
Mr. Nandor?
Approve?
And I also approve. Your variance has been granted. Thank you. Trustee Munish, would you like to read the next petition into the record?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Board of Adjustment Case 6-20, Robert Ballas, 18617 Evans Way Drive, Wildwood, Missouri, 63005, care of Lewis Henry, Space Farms Architects, 12981 Mauer Industrial Drive, St. Louis, Missouri, 63127. Requests an exception to the minimum yard requirements general for the purpose of constructing an attached garage addition onto an existing single-family dwelling circa 1996 upon the property located at 18617 Evans Way Drive, St. Louis County locator number 19X330302, adjusted lot 23 of the boundary adjustment of lots 23 and 24 and common ground area in the Wild Horse Spring Farm subdivision, Plat 7. Established 2000, Plat Book 348, page 718, which would thereby authorize a side yard setback distance of 13 feet in lieu of the required 15-foot standard. This request is contrary to the requirements of Chapter 415, 090 Non-Urban Resident District Regulations of the City of Wildwood Zoning Ordinance and St. Louis County Density Development Procedure, DDP, authorized in 1989. This particular property is located in Ward 1.
Thank you, Director Munish. Anybody else?
Before beginning the hearing on this case, the Department of Planning would like to offer into the record the following as exhibits: the city's charter and master plan, the municipal code of the city of Wildwood, specifically Chapter 400, Article 2, the Board of Adjustments Establishments, Duties and Powers, Chapter 415, the zoning code, zoning regulations, the file prepared and maintained on this request, including the petitioner's application and related information, as well as the department's recommendation report, and any testimony, exhibits, or other information offered as part of tonight's hearing as evidence in this cause, and all of which may apply to the case before you this evening. The Department of Planning has prepared a slide presentation by Director Vunich pertaining to this case, if the board would like it presented at this time.
Thank you again, Madam Chair. Madam Chair and members of the board, the department has prepared a brief presentation for your consideration regarding this particular request. The first slide is an aerial photograph, again representing the development pattern around the subject site, which is highlighted in the blue or turquoise line, and the surrounding roadway system that serves the particular site and other lots in its vicinity. The next slide, again, is the driving directions provided by the Department of Planning relative to City Hall to the subject site. Again, as you can see, it's northwest of the City Hall site near Babbler State Park and is accessed via State Route 109 to Wild Horse Creek Road through the Wild Horse Spring Farm subdivision. The aerial photograph being presented in this particular slide represents the development of the property. And as you can see, there is an existing dwelling, a attached garage that is perpendicular to the dwelling, large patio area, and other accessory structures and uses. In this particular aerial photograph, the topography is provided, and as you can see, the property generally rises in elevation from Evans Way Drive toward the dwelling and the back of the lot. The next series of photographs or slides represent the development itself. Here, the entry into Wild Horse Spring Farm subdivision. This particular photograph shows the intersection of Evans Way as well as the main street serving the development. The next photograph is a photograph of the subject site and the existing single-family dwelling. Generally speaking, this is looking to the north-northeast. The photograph that's being provided in this particular slide represents the existing attached garage, a 3-car type. And then in this particular photograph, this is the area of the proposed attached garage addition. This particular photograph represents the rear portion of the subject lot, and this is in proximity to the driveway and another adjoining lot where an existing single-family dwelling is located. Again, represented here by the photograph 2 is the topography of the property. This is looking more in a southwest direction from the back of the lot. And as you can see, there's the rear of the dwelling, the area proposed for the detached garage, and then the accessory structures and uses. This is the lot on an adjacent property. And this is again looking more in a north to northeast direction. This is another dwelling, again looking toward the north-northeast. This is to what I would describe east of the subject property. It's important to note that there is a driveway, and that driveway is a shared use driveway. It serves the house in white, and it also serves the house in the previous slide that was in more yellow in color. The engineered drawing for this particular attached garage is provided by the petitioner and represented in this particular slide. And as you can see, it represents the existing dwelling, the attached garage, the proposed new attached garage, and then again the accessory structures and uses associated with it. It's important to note that although the property zone NU non-urban resident district, the density development procedure approved by St. Louis County actually allows the lots to be less than 3 acres in size, but no smaller than 1 acre in area, and it also impacts the setback distances. That's why you're not seeing the standard 30-foot side or rear yard areas. Again, a depiction of the requested setback variance relative to the proposed garage. And the petitioner was kind enough to provide architectural elevations of the proposed garage addition. This is again from the architect engaged by the property owners. And as you can see, the architectural style is intended to mirror the existing dwelling, and more so, I believe, the existing garage structure as well. Again, just some photographs provided by the petitioner's architect. And as you can see, the existing garage in east elevation and then another at the north elevation. Madam Chair and members of the board, if there are any questions regarding the department's slide presentation, I'd be glad to try to answer them at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Petitioner, please come forward. Can you please state your name, address, and relation to the property, and then be sure to be sworn in by the court reporter?
My name is Lewis Henry. My address is 12981 Mauer Industrial Drive, Sunset Hills, Missouri. And what was the last one?
Your relation.
Oh, I'm the architect on the project.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give is the truth?
I do.
Can you please explain the nature of the request and the hardship or practical difficulty necessitating the variance?
Well, as the city stated, the topography of the lot is pretty steep, which the combination of that and the location of the driveway really doesn't allow for any other location on the site to provide an additional garage. The And also, we want to be able to use the existing driveway without having to add additional paving on the property. The location of the garage next to the existing garage, it's kind of at a 90-degree angle. Right behind the existing garage, there's some existing pool equipment, and then right behind that, there's a propane tank that's buried underground. And to relocate either one of those is a pretty major expense. I'd like to point out that because of the angle of the setback and the angle of the addition, we're actually only encroaching about 8 square feet of building onto the setback, which is about 1% of the total addition area. We looked at trying to compress the garages as much as we could, but with the requirements from St. Louis County for wind and seismic bracing, I don't think we can get it any smaller. The only way you could make it any smaller would be to do a single double wide garage door. And, their house is kind of a French country style. And with the existing 3 individual garage doors, it just would really kind of destroy the aesthetic, we feel.
Do any board members have any questions for the petitioner? Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any speakers in the audience who want to speak in favor of or opposition to the request? Seeing none. Are there any requests to hear an oral presentation of the department's report? Seeing none, does the Department of Planning have any final comments?
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the board. The department would also like to thank the petitioner. They were proactive in getting the Homeowners Association architectural review approval, as well as letters from the 2 property owners most impacted by this request, that being the one to the northeast, as well as the one a little bit further east. And what I mean by most impacted as the orientation of this garage faces south, the doors. It's screened pretty much all the way around it with landscaping and evergreens. And as you can see, the existing driveway that is just to the east of the proposed garage that serves the property to the north is very long, kind of windy, and I actually went up that direction and taking pictures, and I couldn't even see where the location of the proposed garage would be. With that stated, the department is in support of the request. Again, this is a request for a 13-foot side yard setback in lieu of 15 feet. The plans do show a 30-foot setback on here. However, that is the underlying zoning of just a straight non-urban zoning district. But again, as Director Vunich stated, this has a DDP, density development procedure, applied to it that allows the setbacks to be reduced. I'm available for any questions, or Director Vunich, if you should have any of us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Anybody have any questions? This time I'd like to close the proceeding so that we may vote and call for a vote. Do we have a motion to approve, deny, or approve the petition?
I'll make a motion that we approve the variance as requested.
We have a motion to approve the variance as requested. Do we have a second?
A second.
Thank you. Mr. Springer, how do you vote?
Approve.
Mr. Frank, how do you vote?
Approve.
Mr. Nandor?
Approve?
And I also approve. The variance has been granted. Thank you. Break. Can you take a short break?
Certainly, ma'am.
Thank you.
The architect said there's some plumbing. There's some serious plumbing there. Can you imagine all that, moving all that? No, I wasn't here. When was here? I didn't miss. that's the one I couldn't make. That last move. Yeah, I said, oh my God. Yeah, I was thinking, I was literally gonna be like, bud, we're good. Who was the guy? Did you see the look? He was video. Yeah, that was weird. And he didn't say anything, is he the owner of the property currently? Who was, because the realtor was the seller's agent? Yeah. No, or I mean the buyer's agent? So it would make sense they didn't know each other, because she didn't know who he was. Right. Because they looked at him and it was kind of like, I mean, I didn't want to bring it up, but I mean, basically that's the 12 grand that they're going to have to move the well. But it makes sense. It's hard to argue with that. Yeah. If I'm not going to go against international plumbing code, no. I think they know what they're doing.
Yeah, I feel like I don't have a basis.
Yeah. So clearly that other home is putting the pool in. Whoever lived there before and just put the retaining walls up, right. And right. It's amazing how often that happens, I'm sure. We're reviewing the sign again.
Can you go back to the sign map? The sign map? The map for the sign, the drawing.
He wants to check the map.
Yeah.
It was very well prepared.
Very. There were 3 signs last night. 4. How many signs were in October? 4 signs? There was a sign on the side of the building, then the 2 places, and then the big sign. Yeah. A lot of math. We're still recording.
Yes, sir. Yes. One more. I got to think clearly.
There you go.
You ready?
Yes, thank you.
Director Greenwich, can you please read the last petition into the record?
Be my pleasure, ma'am. Madam Chair and members of the board, the last case tonight is Board of Adjustment Case 7-20, Brian and Jennifer Hayberger, pardon my pronunciation, 1610 Shepherd Road, Wildwood, Missouri, 63038, care of Brian Kunzel, Kunzel Construction, Inc., 1096 East Highway 50, Union, Missouri, 63084. Request an exception to the minimum yard requirements general for the purpose of constructing an attached garage addition onto an existing single-family dwelling, circa 1971, upon a property located at 1610 Shepherd Road, St. Louis County locator number 21V61-01997, boundary adjustment plat of parcel 3 in section 25, township 45 North, range 3 East, which would thereby authorize a front yard setback distance of 44 feet in lieu of the required 50-foot standard, such being measured from the property's northern boundary line along Shepherd Ridge Road. This request is contrary to the requirements of Chapter 415-090 NU Non-Urban District Regulations of the City of Wildwood Zoning Ordinance. This particular subject site is located in Ward 3.
Before the beginning the hearing on this case, the Department of Planning would like to offer into the record the following as exhibits: the city's charter and master plan, the municipal code of the City of Wildwood, specifically Chapter 400, Article 2, the Board of Adjustments establishment, duties and powers, Chapter 415, the zoning regulations, the file prepared and maintained on this request, including the petitioner's application and related information, as well as the department's recommendation report. And any testimony, exhibits, or other information offered as part of tonight's hearing as evidence in this cause, and all of which may apply to the case before you this evening. The department has prepared a slide presentation by Director Vunich pertaining to the case, if you would like it presented at this time.
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Again, thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair and members of the board, the department has prepared a brief presentation relative to the subject site for your consideration. The first slide or photograph is an aerial photograph of the subject site and the surrounding lots and roadway system. As you can see, the lot has double frontage, both on Shepherd Road, a public street, and Shepherd Ridge Road, a private street. Another major feature of that particular property is the Ameren, Missouri transmission easement, which defines what I would describe as the southern boundary of the property. As the department does with each of the requests, it provides driving directions from City Hall to the subject site. As you can see, it's principally Route 100 to Route 109 to Shepherd Road. Again, an aerial photograph at a greater level of detail. As you can see, there is an existing single-family dwelling located on the property, a private barn or stable, and then several fenced areas of pasture in association with the subject site. In this particular aerial photograph and image, the topography of the property and surrounding area is provided for consideration. The next set of photographs are representations of the subject site and the surrounding area. The subject site is in the center of the photograph. Shepherd Ridge Road is the street that Ms. Gaston is identifying with the pointer, and then Shepherd Road is at that intersection point. Again, this is looking north on Shepherd Road at the intersection of Shepherd Ridge Road, the private street. And this is looking south on Shepherd Road from the same location. In the background of the slide, you can see the Ameren, Missouri transmission line easement, along with several of their towers. This is a view of the subject property, an existing single-family dwelling. The property is accessed from Shepherd Ridge Road. This is looking from Shepherd Road, and there is no access from the property onto the public street. This is a view of the property. This is looking, pardon me, quite all right. This is looking from the Shepherd Road area. This is what I would describe the east side of the dwelling. I am looking toward the east. Again, the access point from Shepherd Ridge Road. This is looking more in a southwesterly direction. This is just a view of the private barn and some of the pasture areas that are fenced, and just the landscaping in association with the property. Again, the outbuilding or private barn, and then the fenced areas for pasture. And again, in the background, also dominating the site besides the Ameren, Missouri transmission line easement, is a telecommunications tower. The existing dwelling and the garage, a two-car variety. And then again, a plot plan indicating the desired location of the new proposed garage. And as you can see, the dwelling fronts onto Shepherd Road, is accessed from Shepherd Ridge Road, the private street, and the petitioner would like to place the proposed garage closer to Shepherd Ridge Road, a distance of 44 feet in lieu of 50 feet. The next slide is a representation of the design or engineered plan for the proposed garage addition. And again, this petitioner was kind enough to provide architectural elevations. As you can see, it's a 3-car type and is intended to match the existing dwelling in many regards. Madam Chair, members of the board, if there are any questions regarding the department's presentation of its photographs and slides, we'd be glad to try to answer any questions at this time. Thank you for your patience with the Director of Planning tonight doing a new job.
Any questions for Director Mayor?
Thank you.
Thank you. Can the petitioner please come forward? Please state your name, address, and relation to the property, and then be sworn in by the court reporter.
My name is Brent Kinsel, 1096 East Highway 50, Union, Missouri, and we're the general contractor hired by the owner.
Okay.
Yes, I did.
Can you please explain the nature of the request and the hardship or practical difficulty necessitating the variance?
So it's basically, as the department had said, one thing, the reason we're going 26 feet out on that is basically to be allowed or be able to fit a truck in there. And they're kind of wanting to upsize their garage so that they can fit all of their stuff inside the garage. So that way it's not stored on the outside. We played around with it a few different ways. The biggest thing is there's a bunch of our trees, major trees that we don't want to get rid of, that kind of add to the site and so on and so forth. The actual garage or the house as it is right now is actually 87 feet from the road. However, that the easement for the road kind of comes into that. So,
Are there any questions for the petitioner? Thank you. Are there any speakers in the audience who may want to speak in favor of or opposition to the request? Are there any requests to hear an oral presentation of the department's report? Seeing none, at this time, Ms. Gaston, would you like to make any final comments?
The department would just like to note, per its recommendation report, we are in support of this. Again, the variance request is 44 feet in lieu of 50 feet from the private roadway easement, that being Shepherd Ridge Road. Director Vudich and I are available if you have any further questions.
Thank you, Ms. Gaston.
Thank you.
Any questions for the Department of Planning? Thank you. Does the board have any final comments? Anyone on the board? At this time, I'd like to close the proceedings for a vote and call for a vote. Do we have a motion to approve, deny, or approve with conditions?
I'll motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve as requested. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second. Mr. Springer, how do you vote?
Approve.
Mr. Frank?
Approve.
Mr. Nandor?
Approve.
And I also vote yes to approve the variance as requested. Your variance has been approved. Thank you. And the department would like to note that the next meeting board adjustment will be held on March 19th. Thank you. Meeting is adjourned. We have a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I will second that.
How does everybody vote?
Aye.
Mr. Springer?
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned. Thanks for being there tonight. We appreciate it.